State, Our Heisman is presented by VW of Edmond.
Oklahoma is Heisman country.
7 men from our state have won college football's biggest prize, the Heisman Trophy. Good evening, I'm Dean Blevins.
And I'm John Holcomb at the University of Oklahoma. Tonight, we dive into the careers of Oklahoma football royalty, their defeats, perseverance, and triumphs.
Thank you for joining us for Our State, Our Heisman.
Winning the Heisman Trophy was kind of showing that all the summer workouts in the Schmitty, all of the tough times you went through with your teammates, all that was worth it.
Oklahoma's latest #1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield, takes us inside his Heisman-winning season.
It was an incredible feeling, in a weekend that, I'll never forget.
And still to come, why OU's Sam Bradford nearly ended up on the hardwood instead of the gridiron.
I spent more time with Billy recruiting Billy probably than any other player I recruited.
We traveled to Hooks, Texas, where Billy Sims was pumping gas when he got a phone call that's become legend.
The greatest college football player ever.
Mike Gundy looks back on playing with OSU's greatest running back, Barry Sanders.
So many things changed for me in that moment.
Also ahead, suffering from injuries, just how hurt was Jason White in OU's national championship loss to LSU?
That's the million-dollar question.
We've got the answer and much, much more coming up.
The Sooner who started it all is Billy Vessels.
Craig Day takes a look at Billy Vessel's 1952 Heisman Trophy winning season and one historic performance that put Billy Vessels on the national map.
From his high school field here in Cleveland to the University of Oklahoma to the Heisman Trophy and beyond, Billy Vessels was a remarkable athlete. Coming off injuries his junior year at OU, no one would have predicted what would come next for Billy Vessels. Then a 1952 game against Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana changed everything.
Oklahoma's brilliant quarterback, Eddie Crowder, steps back and fires one into the arms of Bill Vessels, who sprints over the goal for a touchdown.
The Sooner clash with the Fighting Irish was the first nationally televised college football game.
People across the country in New York and Boston and Chicago and Los Angeles, San Francisco, they got to see Oklahoma for the first time.
And they got to see this amazing athlete named Billy Vessels.
From the Notre Dame 47, Billy Vessels slashes through tackle for 7.
I think he had both great speed, but he had to be a grinder because that was the kind of defense that he was playing against.
Michael Dean is an OU sports historian and has been part of the OU football broadcast for nearly 30 years.
As a halfback back then, he would run for touchdowns, he would receive passes for touchdowns, and they even had the halfback pass. He would occasionally throw a pass for a touchdown.
And Billy Vessels put on a show in the game against the Irish in front of 57,000 fans and those television viewers across the country.
Before Notre Dame's startled defenders can give chase, he's off on a 62-yard scoring canter to give the Oklahoma Sooners a 14-7 advantage at the end of the first half.
In just that game, Vessels gained 195 yards on 17 carries and scored all 3 OU touchdowns.
Now watch the brilliant Mr. Vessels strike like lightning. On a neat cutback, the hard-running speedster heads for the sidelines, breaks clear, and streaks for 44 yards to rack up his 3rd touchdown of the game. But Notre Dame's inspired Fighting Irish topple unbeaten Oklahoma, the nation's #4 team, by a thrilling 27-21 score.
Although Oklahoma lost the game, Vessels won over Heisman voters.
And that probably as much as anything influenced the Heisman Trophy voters, most of whom were back on the East Coast, because now they finally saw this Billy Vessels guy on television, and that probably did as much to influence them to vote for him. He was notified that he won the Heisman. He had asked somebody, well, what's that? What's this Heisman thing?
Billy Vessels, it is my great honor as president of the Downtown Athletic Club of New York to present to you the Heisman Memorial Trophy for the outstanding college football player for 1952.
Mr. Postel, I certainly appreciate this great honor in receiving the Heisman Trophy for 1952.
In a different era with different styles of offenses, not as flashy as today's high-powered attacks, Vessels was impressive that Heisman-winning year. His 1952 season included 1,072 rushing yards, 209 passing yards, and 18 touchdowns.
Those kinds of numbers are absolutely eye-popping for that era, for the early 1950s. It was a total different time, totally different coaching styles, totally different playing styles, totally different defenses, offenses than we have today. What he did back in those days was something that was unheard of.
He palmed a pitch out from Crowder for a 47-yard scoring dash.
Not only did Billy Vessels win the Heisman Trophy for his sensational senior year as a Sooner, he also, in many regards, unknowingly changed the future of college football and the futures of players yet to come, like 1969 Heisman winner Steve Owens.
So when I was growing up, Billy was my hero, and he was the kind of player that I wanted to be like.
Dean thinks Billy Vessels was a change agent for college football and America's perception of college football, and helped to pioneer more potent, high-powered offenses that would come later as the game evolved.
If you talk to the most recent Heisman Trophy winners, they would look back at Billy Vessels as the guy who started it all, who made it possible, who created the kind of football that they excelled at that helped them win the Heisman. They will look at Billy Vessels as the one who helped set the course for Oklahoma football in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and up to today.
Billy Vessels' Heisman win inspired a lot of young boys across the state of Oklahoma who wanted to become Sooners one day.
One of them was growing up in Miami at that time and has a special connection with our Kelly Ogle.
Let's take a look at the starting lineups, and here's Bob Barry.
Thank you, Jack, and good afternoon, everyone.
My connection to OU is Jack Ogle, Bob Barry.
The varsity operating from their own 8-yard line.
My dad and Bob Barry were the radio broadcast team for OU football in the 60s.
I used to listen to them, and they'd paint that picture of this place here.
Tremendous crowd on hand for homecoming.
And of course, that's when I first started saying, hey, that's where I want to go to school.
Wow.
It was my dream.
And Steve Owens learned from an early age, growing up in this small house in Miami, one of 11 children, that hard work was the only way to accomplish that dream.
From the time I first started playing football, I looked for ways to get stronger, faster, quicker.
I learned so much from him.
Little brother Tinker would himself become an All-American wide receiver at OU.
I watched him work out like in track, and I would literally see him get sick because he worked so hard, wanting to be the best he could be.
And he would become the best in college football.
Gives to Steve Owens, first down.
I mean, he ricocheted up there. He was a ricochet romance, you know. He was, all you got was headgear and shoulder pads and run over people, and he slithers.
First down. Boy, he almost had it.
The Miami War Dog tailback wore out defenses. He could run all day. He credits his conditioning coach.
There's no daylight, Chris, so he had to go over the top.
He used to take me I think it was 5 or 6 miles east of Miami, and I would run into town. And if I started to slow down, she'd honk the horn.
She was the pretty little cheerleader from the crosstown school. She stole Steve's heart when they were 13 and 14 years old, and Barbara Owens is still coaching him today.
She was my biggest supporter, but my biggest critic. I think she saw something that I couldn't see.
In 1966, Steve Owens' final year in high school, he was named the co-winner of the Oklahoma Running Back of the Year. The lanky high schooler jokingly struck this Heisman pose that would prove to be prophetic. Owens narrowed his college choices down to OU and Powerhouse, Arkansas.
They fired Gomer Jones here, okay? And who they hired? They hired Jim McKenzie. Jim called me and said, hey, forget all that stuff I've been telling you about Arkansas. You need to follow your dreams, go to Oklahoma.
New OU coach McKenzie brought with him from Arkansas a confident young offensive coordinator named Barry Switzer.
The thing about Coach, he made playing fun. He was tough on us, and he challenged you each day to get better.
When we had a scrimmage in the spring of his freshman year, we lined him up at tailback. I thought that a lot of people said, oh, he'll play tight end. He's not going to be fast enough to play tailback or whatever. We had a goal line scrimmage, and he scored about 7 out of 10 plays.
And Owens gets his 8th touchdown of the year.
Steve Owens did not disappoint, being named all-conference running back his sophomore and junior seasons. But the best was yet to come his senior year.
Big 8 rushing record has just been broken.
I never thought about a Heisman, you know. I just wanted to come here be a part of this tradition and contribute to this place. Never thought about the Heisman until I won the Heisman.
Owens did it between the tackles. A workhorse carrying the ball a mind-blowing average of 36 times a game.
And who would you call on for that yardage? Steve Owens.
For 1,523 yards and 23 touchdowns to win the Heisman over a trio of quarterbacks. Days after winning the Heisman, Owens was invited to appear on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And he'll never forget what happened backstage in the green room.
And I'm sitting in the corner, door opens, and here comes this incredible person. It was Muhammad Ali.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was such a big fan of his. I couldn't believe it. Muhammad Ali. Shortly after the door opens, here comes Charlton Heston. Moses.
Steve recalls sitting between them holding the Heisman when an aide for Johnny Carson walked back in.
She said, "You got a call from the President of the United States, Richard Nixon." And noticed Muhammad Ali and Charlton Heston looked at each other and said, "Who is this guy?"
Steve and Barbara, the two kids from Miami, would go to the White House and meet President Nixon and even fly on Air Force One with him. Steve Owens' life would never be the same. In 1970, he was drafted in the first round by the Detroit Lions. Despite an injury-plagued pro career, he made the Pro Bowl the one season he was completely healthy.
You definitely showed you could play at that level.
I could play at that level, and that was important to me.
He retired after 5 seasons in the NFL and now lives in Norman, where he has built an extremely successful insurance and financial business. His best friend? A guy named Billy Sims.
Still to come.
Boomer Sooner back and forth at the stadium. Those are things that I dreamed of hearing.
Texas native Baker Mayfield tells us why playing football for Oklahoma was like coming home.
It's different than everybody else.
Plus, Barry Sanders' success in Stillwater during his very first scrimmage.
And next, Billy Sims' explosive moves during his remarkable season in 1978.
The fact that I was at the right place, right time.
One of Coach Barry Switzer's most sought-after recruits was Billy Sims. In his 1978 Heisman-winning season, Sims rushed for more than 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns. But it was a lot more than just numbers for Billy and Barry, the coach and player. Their bond on the sideline led to a lifelong relationship.
Second man is him. He's gone.
Billy had it all.
First down, Oklahoma.
He just separated himself from everyone else.
He breaks it up the middle, and he is gone.
He was just unbelievable. Fun to watch.
Billy Sims.
He had the size,
Look out.
the quickness,
With the foot race.
the speed.
Touchdown. Oh, my goodness.
He was a winner. He knew how to win.
How many men did you think tried to tackle him?
Football was king. Everybody played football.
When Billy Ray Sims was in the 8th grade, he moved to tiny Hooks, Texas.
Just your typical small town. Town revolves around the school and the churches.
And on Friday nights, the religion of high school football.
Like the rest of Texas, it's always big.
Billy didn't even play football till 10th grade.
Well, I was so afraid of getting hit, and I was just making people move, you know, miss me and all that stuff.
Like a man playing with boys.
As I say, it was a whole lot of running and no blocking.
He just didn't outrun everybody. He just went around them or over them and whatever it took.
Word of Billy's talent traveled far and fast.
10,000 people show up at a stadium that would hold 2,000 or 3,000.
Billy shattered longtime records as a senior in 1974. Recruiters from everywhere were hooked on Billy.
On Friday nights, every coach that was anybody would be in Hooks.
Including a young, charismatic OU coach, Barry Switzer.
I spent more time with Billy recruiting Billy probably than any other player I recruited.
But Billy was Baylor-bound until a now legendary phone call from Switzer during halftime of an important road game for unbeaten Oklahoma.
I walked in the locker room at Colorado in 1974.
Threw it on the wing to the right.
So I'm listening to the game.
Touchdown, Oklahoma.
And I called CJ Conoco Service Station in Hooks, Texas, I-30.
One of my coworkers come out there and say, hey, Billy, Coach Switzer want to talk to you on the phone.
I'll never forget CJ yelling, Billy, Coach wants to talk to you on the phone. I could hear him yell, he's coaching the game in Colorado. No, he's on the phone. He wants to talk to you. He said, get up. We didn't have much time.
And I thought my coworkers was playing a joke on me.
We talked for 20 minutes. The referee says, Coach, kickoff is in 3 minutes. And I said, Billy, you hear that? We got to go finish this ass kicking. I'll call you later on tonight.
Did you come to Oklahoma because of Barry Switzer?
Oh, no question about it.
Highlighting a remarkable recruiting class of 1975, Billy committed to Barry, the beginning of a close lifetime relationship.
We had guys that could just flat out play football.
Quarterback Thomas Lott among them.
I spent so many hours out on this football field, and Saturdays were the good times. That was your reward.
Injuries kept Simbo out of the starting lineup early, but he started in '77 and had a huge 1978.
That was the year that he was totally healthy, and everyone got to see the Billy Sims that they had heard about.
Real quick, big hole, big touchdown.
He would do anything to try to get away from people.
Oh, he's something.
You got to get the ball in Billy's hands because he'll make something good happen.
He's gone. Goodbye.
I do remember when he first started to flying, and he was like 5 yards from the goal line, and he went up in the air and flew for the other 4.5 yards.
Fascinating the nation, the country's leading rusher, Billy steamrolled his way, becoming OU's third Heisman winner in 1978.
The winner is Billy Sims from the University of Oklahoma.
The fact that I was at the right place, right time with a great group of guys.
Billy was the #1 pick in the 1980 NFL draft by the Detroit Lions.
Being an offensive lineman has made it really easy for me.
He was reunited with fellow OU offensive tackle Carl Baldeschweiler.
We had to learn a technique for his speed. He was so fast and would get there so quickly.
Billy Sims following Dexter Bussey. Touchdown!
He had something that only came through in a game when everything meant something.
Sims to the 5. He's over.
A knee injury ended Billy's brief but brilliant 5-year NFL career in 1984.
Most everybody's career ends before they're ready. And so he had to just kind of, reevaluate his life and, what he was going to do with it.
If you live long enough in life, you're going to have some ups and downs along the way.
Those downs included failed business ventures, an arrest for owing back child support, the hard times leading Billy to sell a close friend his Heisman Trophy.
The funds and everything went to my kids for college. See, a lot of people don't realize that.
But turning setback to comeback, Billy opened a successful barbecue restaurant chain. His football roots still run deep, as he's always supported Sooners.
And the winner is Jason White.
And when I get up there, Billy Sims is in the back yelling Boomer, which it kind of calmed me down a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, how many times are you going to say that? And finally I said,
Sooner! Sooner! I've been saying it since '78. Yeah. And people in New York expect me to say it.
You got one?
I got one.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to say Boomer till the day I die. Yeah, till the day I die.
Boomer Sooner is more than a chant for Billy. It's become part of him since the day Coach Switzer recruited the Hooks headliner to the Sooner State.
Yeah, when you recruit him, you got him for life.
Got him for life.
He
told me when I came up here, he said, well, after the crowd and the cheering and your career's over with, I'm going to still be in your corner. He's been true to that. No regrets whatsoever.
I remember the first time I saw Billy, he was in the chow line, and he had a cut-off sweatshirt and a big afro. And I put him in the category with Leroy and Dewey Selman, where when you walk on the field or you see Billy in the huddle, you just felt bulletproof.
What Sam Bradford did off the field that Bob Stoops says brought his game to the next level.
My heart was racing, my mind was racing.
And find out why the lights went out moments after Barry Sanders won OSU's first Heisman Trophy.
This segment of Our State, Our Heisman is sponsored by Phillips 66. Live to the full.
Barry Sanders is Oklahoma State University's first and only Heisman Trophy winner. His natural talent on the field proved he was born to run, and he still holds some of college football's biggest records.
He is within 47 yards of Marcus Allen's single-season rushing mark, and Sanders still has one game to go. Era, is there a chance this just locked up the Heisman for Sanders today?
I think so. As you heard me earlier in the day, he was my selection.
Late November 1988. 3 months earlier, Barry Sanders' name wasn't mentioned when it came to serious Heisman contenders. But it didn't take long that season for the nation to take notice.
The first few games, I just exploded. I don't know what my yards per carry average was, but it seemed like a touchdown or a big play every time I touched the ball.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back to where it started. Sanders, a high school standout in Wichita, chose OSU over Tulsa and Iowa State.
And I wanted to get away from home, from my, 8 sisters or whatever, whatever it was. There was nothing bigger than going away to play college football.
I've teased my friends about this, John. You didn't have to be an Oklahoma State coach to get on Highway 35 and drive north.
When I saw what he did in that freshman scrimmage after being on campus 2 weeks in August of '85, I knew at that time that he was different than everybody else.
Sanders was dangerous enough to earn All-America honors as a kick returner his sophomore year. He also spent some time in the backfield with Heisman hopeful and future Hall of Famer Thurman Thomas.
I don't think long-term it was probably going to work, just because I know I wasn't at that point going to be able to block anybody as well as he would be able to anyways, and he wasn't going to be moving to fullback.
With Thomas gone to the NFL, the stage was then set for Sanders' Heisman run the following season. And the head coach was doing his best to keep things calm by telling the media the Cowboys would be a running back by committee that fall.
It wasn't going to be by committee, but maybe it was by committee, John, but the chairman of that committee was wearing 21.
I had no expectations other than that was exactly where I wanted to be, having a chance to start in the Big 8 conference.
That humble approach may have been in contrast to his dynamic play, but it is unmistakably part of what makes Sanders special. Where did your humility, where does that come from?
Oh, I don't think I had a choice. I think, but certainly to answer your question, I think mom and dad.
He would obviously toss or hand the ball to the official, would come by the huddle and pat each of the offensive linemen and the fullback on the head, and then jog to the bench.
By the time Heisman Saturday rolled around, Sanders had already rushed for more than 2,000 yards. Most of the finalists were in New York for the announcement, but Sanders was with his team in Tokyo.
And I wasn't sure even if I wanted to participate in any of it. It just happened to fall on game day.
What I was told, okay, by whoever was running the network.
The 1988 winner.
We're going to come on, they're going to announce the winner, but if it's Sanders, we're going to pan the camera on him, okay? Basically just say thank you, and then you guys are out of here.
Here's Barry Sanders.
I looked composed, but my heart was racing, my mind was racing.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Thanks, Coach. We'll be back in a minute with a live interview from Barry Sanders.
Let me go back and get some sleep and get ready for this game.
And there's about 3 or 4 plugs in the wall. All right, so I'm thinking, well, I can solve this deal. I just reach over and unplug. You work at TV, I just unplugged a bunch of stuff. Lights go off. I said, come on, Barry, let's go.
And so many things changed for me in that moment, and I didn't want there to be a Heisman jinx.
There was no Heisman jinx. Sanders ran for 344 yards in a close win over Texas Tech. Then returned to Stillwater, where Cowboy fans were ready to celebrate, before heading to New York the following day for the Heisman dinner.
I guess you've seen I tried to escape earlier, but they made me stay.
I just remember going to New York and meeting my family there, and just, and that's when it really hits you, sort of a sign of things to come, in a lot of ways. And so I was trying to embrace it, but I was never someone who I guess got used to that much media attention, and so that part definitely took some getting used to.
The Cowboys capped 1988 with a Holiday Bowl blowout of Wyoming, and Sanders' single-season rushing total, without the bowl yards, still stands as the best in Division I football.
It would have been like hitting 100 home runs, or a pitcher winning 50 games, or some kind. And he could have had 4,000 yards if we'd have just done it.
And I had every intention of going back to school when I first won the Heisman. So fortunately, my dad sent me down several times and told me how much of an idiot I would have been to go back to school. And that's just the kind of guy he was.
Sanders left for the NFL and the Detroit Lions. And after a decade of success, he walked away from the game and into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2004.
This is, again, arguably the best back to ever play the game, period, at any level.
When somebody says that in describing you, greatest of all time, what goes through your head?
It's no, it's a great it's a great compliment, and sometimes I don't always know how to react to it because I feel like I remember having that same conversation, about the running backs that I love to watch in my formative years, and so it almost sometimes seems like they're talking about someone else, but it's a great conversation and a great conversation to be a part of.
My first encounter with Barry Sanders came months after he won the Heisman Trophy at a benefit basketball game in Shawnee. He says he felt like he had a good game and he loved playing against rival schools.
It's the whole reason he plays, college football.
Up next, big dreams on a big stage. Find out why in the world Jason White's first time in an OU huddle led to the tight end calling the play.
I was recruited nationwide by a lot of different schools. I took a trip to Miami. I took a trip to Tennessee, Alabama, and OSU. And my goal, I was going to Miami.
Jason White thought he had it all figured out, but fate, injuries, and the Sooners led him to take a different route to the Heisman Trophy.
White had not one, but 2 season-ending knee injuries requiring reconstructive surgeries. While most counted him out for good, the hometown hero from Tuttle battled back to beat all the odds. Here's Robin Marsh.
As another day dawns in Tuttle, America, this small town reminds you of its big bragging rights.
Yeah, come on, bring it back.
Home of Jason White, 2003 Heisman Trophy winner.
Go, go, go!
He's always been a Tiger.
Ready, set, go.
And even though his looks have changed over the years, his drive never did. Jason White still regrets
Against Sulphur my junior year, it was in double overtime.
the game that got away.
I got tackled right here on the 2-yard line. I remember looking straight that way to see if I made it across the goal line, and I didn't make it.
A lifetime of memories rush in here at the Bill Hinkle Field at Tiger Stadium in Tuttle.
You'd run out on the field, you could see Dad, and then you look up and see Mom.
Jason White excelled as a high school quarterback, and by his senior year, big collegiate programs were recruiting, except the one team he loved, the Oklahoma Sooners. But things dramatically changed one December day back in 1998.
It is an honor and a privilege to be the next head coach here at the University of Oklahoma.
And I got home from school that day, and my mom said, hey, you got a couple messages from some coaches. She said a new one called, Coach Stoops. And so I called him back immediately, and he's like, I'd like to come out and talk to you. And I said, well, okay, well, when? Well, how far is it to Tuttle? And I said, well, it's about 45 minutes. And he goes, all right, I'll be there in 45 minutes.
Number 18's first snap for the Sooners came on a big stage.
And Hibble is rocked again.
The OU Texas game.
So now he's headed off.
Starter Nate Hibble got hurt, and Jason White says he was scared to death when he got in the huddle.
I was nervous, so Trent actually called the play and actually got sacked the very first play.
And they sack him.
After I got sacked,
Option look again to Griffin. Touchdown! The story of a backup quarterback.
we drove down the field and scored the only touchdown that game, actually.
These guys are for real.
The Sooners won, and Coach Bob Stoops knew he had a great leader in the making.
Jason did a great job tonight.
Jason's success landed him the starter's job, and a few games later,
In the middle, time, got Smith again.
the showdown in Nebraska, number 1 versus number 2 Oklahoma.
A nice throw by Jason White.
And that is when the unexpected happened.
An open man, he may take off. He'll drop it to the open man. Griffin out of bounds. Now White is down.
In the second quarter of the game, Jason White's season ended with a torn ACL to his left knee.
I thought, okay, I'll have surgery, come back, it'll be good, you know. And I did that and came back the very next year, earned the starting job the very next year from the get-go.
Jason White. Did his knee buckle?
My my second start of that year, I hurt the right knee against Alabama.
You see him grab his right knee that time?
Knowing I was fixing to have a kid, knowing that, you know, this is a second injury, listening to people talk about how probably wasn't going to get to play again, you know, just, it was hard. It was really hard just to sit back and have all those things on your plate. And so once I decided, hey, I'm going to have surgery, I'm going to do everything possible to play again, and if I don't, well, at least I can say that I tried.
It's funny what God gives you. He takes away maybe his mobility, and now Jason has to rely solely on his arm and his smarts, and look what he does. Wins the Heisman Trophy and leads us to a couple of great years.
And the winner is Jason White, Oklahoma.
Everything went blank after that. I remember looking at my parents. I went and gave them a hug. To be able to share that moment with my coaches and teammates, because at the end of the day, I was fortunate enough to be on a great team with great players, and I just happened to be the quarterback.
While this 40-pound statue and elite hardware are so impressive, the competitor in white still thinks about the game that got away. The national championship against LSU.
He'll fire middle, Clayton.
How bad were you hurting?
That's the million-dollar question. You know, I was pretty beat up from the Kansas State game, and I had about 3 weeks to heal up from that. I was still pretty beat up. And in fact, in the third quarter, I had broke my sesamoid bone in my foot and got it taped up and continued to play. And plus, I don't care if I, couldn't even walk. I was going to play in that game. I mean, that's the whole reason you play, college football, is to play in that game.
And what about that pass?
I've watched it on film 1,000 times. I mean, it's like this far past his fingertips. If he catches that ball, he scores. We had the momentum, and I think we would have won the game. It was a long journey and a lot of roller coasters, but at the end of the time, it was well worth it. A lot of people probably don't know that.
Up next, Sam Bradford lets us in on one of the best-kept secrets during his OU career.
And still ahead, from two-time walk-on to Heisman Trophy winner, how Baker Mayfield plans to defy the odds again during his rookie season.
Sam Bradford's talent, motivation, and determination have helped him weather every storm he's faced while playing football in college and the pros. And through it all, Sam has become a leader to admire, both on and off the field. The road Sam Bradford took to winning a Heisman was a little different than others. Natural athlete? Sure, but growing up, even in high school, football wasn't everything. It had its place, and that was that.
My parents, they really just encouraged me, to constantly try new things and, playing hockey, playing golf, playing football, just trying it all. And, I loved it all.
He could have went on and played, I believe, Division I basketball at some level, and he has a lot of opportunities to go do some things. And I think he picked the right one, but that's just me.
Bradford's athleticism and versatility was on display at Putnam City North. But it took a while for big-name colleges to notice. Were you motivated by the fact that you weren't more highly thought of as a recruit, I guess?
No, because I probably didn't think of myself as, one of those highly recruited guys, just because, to be honest, football was just kind of something I did in the fall. It wasn't until my sophomore year when I started to get some attention.
Oh, you saw something in Sam early enough.
I really loved it when I started really paying attention to him on the basketball court. You really got to see what a great athlete he is and the way he played basketball. Just running, jumping, dunking the ball, just could shoot from anywhere.
But soon after he arrived in Norman, he had to negotiate a pretty big pothole in the road to that Heisman.
It was hard. That first year, it was really difficult for me. I wasn't playing. For a while, I really didn't feel like I belonged at OU. I wanted to quit. And I remember Coach Heupel was like, no, you're sticking it out. You're not going to go play basketball somewhere. You're going to play football. You're going to do this, and I'm going to help you.
That first year may have been difficult, but Bradford's head coach knew what everyone would find out later. Sam was a starter in waiting.
Well, I knew really when he was being redshirted, watching him direct the scout team. I kept telling our assistant coaches, have you watched him practice? And finally, I made him watch. So you guys need to pay attention to what he's doing. And then they agreed with me.
In the fall of 2007, Bradford started all 14 games, throwing for more than 3,100 yards with 36 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions. A career year for most college quarterbacks. But for him, it was more like a warm-up. The next year was off the charts. How much fun was that? I mean, you guys were so explosive. I mean, it was crazy the numbers you put.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the most fun I've ever had playing football. I hate to say it, but I mean, it was a matter of how many points we were going to score, and we all had a lot of fun doing it.
The 2008 Sooners scored 51 points per game. Bradford threw for a school record 4,720 yards and 50 touchdowns, and along the way to the Big 12 title and BCS championship game, had his Heisman moment. The one that comes to mind for most people, and this is coming from a guy who also does Oklahoma State broadcasts, so you getting flipped. It seemed like at that moment, like, wow, was that the one for you, or is there another one that sticks out for you?
That's the one that everyone kind of brings up because, it got photographed and it was around and, everyone's seen that. But it seems to me there was just a stretch where, I think it was Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, maybe the Big 12 championship game, where we just, we played in primetime games, 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and we were scoring 60 points every week, and we were all having fun, and we were just beating people pretty bad. I think there was a stretch of 3 weeks or so where, I kind of felt like, you know what, maybe I do have a chance at winning this.
And the winner of the 2008 Heisman Trophy is Sam Bradford.
When I heard my name called, obviously, it was an incredible feeling, in a weekend that, I'll never forget.
There's so many people I need to thank. I mean, there's no way I would be here without.
How tough was that speech?
It was tough because I didn't write anything. I knew that if I won that, there were obviously a lot of people that were involved and a lot of people that I needed to thank. But, it just kind of came from the heart and it came out, and I hope it sounded great.
Bradford's follow-up year didn't go as planned. Shoulder surgery in late October, ending his playing career in Norman and starting an unfortunate trend that has followed him in his NFL career. But it's also given him perspective.
I feel like I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about having to deal with, not only the good things, but the bad things in life. How to be a good husband during bad times. Now how to be a good father during bad times and in good times.
The book's not written yet. I think there's still some chapters there, and I think that, a lesser player, a lesser guy, maybe wouldn't have stuck and fought back to get back to where he was, to rehab several times, to stay focused, to be with another team, to go out and try to be a leader on that team. To me, that is probably what I'm most proud of Sam Bradford for.
I think everything happens for a reason. I think God does everything with a purpose. I think sometimes we don't understand what that purpose is at the moment things happen. But I think looking back in life, looking back at some of the injuries and some of the things that I've gone through, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Up next, Baker tells us his secret to successfully anticipating his opponents.
This segment of Our State, Our Heisman is sponsored by Phillips 66. Live to the full.
Baker Reagan Mayfield, a Sooner born and bred from the state of Texas. Incredibly, a two-time walk-on, Baker literally introduced himself to Bob Stoops in 2014. 4 years later, the walk-on would walk away with championship rings and a Heisman Trophy. When Baker Mayfield walked on at Oklahoma in February 2014, it came with no fanfare, no cameras, no announcements, because the head ball coach didn't even know he was there.
After the very first welcome back meeting for the second semester with the team, a young man walks up to me and introduces himself, said, "Coach, I'm Baker Mayfield." I said, "You sure are, aren't you?"
Stoops was familiar with the quarterback from Texas Tech, a true freshman walk-on starter from day one.
You're paying attention, they're winning their first 5-6 games, and who's this true freshman I'm seeing all over the Big 12 stats?
But after his first season, Baker was disgruntled over losing his starting job due to injury and wasn't even guaranteed a scholarship offer, so it was off to Norman, a move he said he felt like was coming home.
The noises of the stadium, I can remember when I was 7 years old walking in. Yeah, Boomer Sooner back and forth at the stadium. Those are things that I dreamed of hearing, and then being on the field in my own jersey in front of that.
OU already had a popular starting quarterback in Trevor Knight, fresh off a stunning season-ending performance, but it didn't stop the plucky Tech transfer from doing what he did best, compete.
Baker made the big plays. He made special plays. He stayed away from the ones that really hurt you, and he just did it more consistently.
Coach Stoops and Lincoln Riley named Baker the 2015 starter. Mayfield did not disappoint.
Watch him scramble and run.
Gonna get outside.
He's going to make you miss him. He's going to find a way to pick up the first down. He's got as much arm talent as anybody that's ever come through here.
Touchdown, OU.
His uncanny ability on the field was matched by his remarkable leadership.
Players you knew gravitated to him in the locker room, and you knew they were going to fight with him. You know, he just inspires that from the people he's around.
One of those players was newcomer receiver D.D. Westbrook.
It was never a dull moment with him.
D.D. and Baker became fast friends.
I mean, it was just fun. Like, he made the game fun. Everyone around us, you know, it was just fun to play.
But when it came to the game, D.D. was wowed by Baker's insatiable thirst to win.
I saw his work ethic, you know what I mean, and it's contagious.
Baker's high profile didn't change his consistent support for his teammates.
He would pick me up in the morning, drive me to workouts, and after I got done with school and class and we were done for the day after dinner, I'd hit him up, he'd come pick me up and take me back home, and it became a routine every morning until I got a vehicle.
I don't know who suggested for him to live that far away from campus, but
with no car?
Yeah, if I would have had frequent driver miles, I definitely would have racked those up.
Mayfield, wide open, Westbrook, touchdown!
Mayfield to Westbrook became an unstoppable force, a playmaking machine, poetry in motion.
Savvy.
Mayfield.
Never giving up.
Fires over the middle. Westbrook again.
He'd know how to lead a team.
This is Baker Mayfield.
I did what I could. I mean, but if the balls weren't where they were supposed to be, then there's no D.D.
The tandem so potent, both earned invites to New York as 2016 Heisman finalists. Baker finishing third, D.D. fourth.
Stepping down after 18 years as the head football coach here at Oklahoma.
Baker was shocked when Stoops stepped down after a Hall of Fame career, but he was certain Lincoln Riley would thrive as the new head coach.
He changed my life in many ways, but I learned a lot about myself in the game of football that helped me throughout the years, and it will continue to help me as I grow and learn more. He set the standard. He's a great role model, but then also how to prepare for your opponents.
Mayfield and Riley didn't miss a beat in 2017. A classic win in Columbus, a third straight Big 12 title, a second college football playoff berth in 3 seasons, and even in an overtime loss to Georgia, one of the most memorable Rose Bowl games in history. But that final year didn't come without unwanted headlines.
That's part of our business. I mean, there's going to be slip-ups. These guys are going to make mistakes.
It's debatable how out of line the flag plant in Columbus really was, but no debate about 2 other unacceptable incidents: the drunken arrest in Arkansas and the ugly sideline antics at Kansas.
I wasn't too concerned about it because I had admitted that I made mistakes, and I got to learn from them, and I was proud of that.
I really do apologize from the bottom of my heart.
I think he handled it well. I appreciated that, even though, you know, those were so public, that he owned them. You know, he took responsibility. He grew from them.
All things considered, it was a career for the ages, capped by hoisting the 2017 Heisman Trophy.
Baker Mayfield, the 83rd Heisman Trophy winner.
All the summer workouts, all of the tough times you went through with your teammates, all that was worth it because that wasn't just my award, that was all of us. Everybody that had impacted my life and helped me get there to that point, that was for them, and we got to enjoy that all together.
The Heisman was followed by being selected #1 overall in the NFL draft by the Cleveland Browns.
To me, the biggest difference is the mental aspect of the game. You got to know football to be able to play at this level.
Baker's story in Ohio is just starting to be written, while his storied career at Oklahoma is in the books. and may very well never be matched.
From a kid that grew up having dreams of going there, the fans made it a dream come true.
Thank you for joining us for Our State, Our Heisman.
To see more interviews from these Heisman stars, go to our website, news9.com. We'll see you back here at 10.
Our State, Our Heisman has been presented by VW of Edmond.